I know you, but I want other people to know who you are. Can you state who you are and basically a little bit about your incredible background because you're kind of exceptional?
I also want just to say, just to begin, thank you for having me on. Really, I'm honored that you would select somebody like me who's not very well known. I live in Stockton, California. I raise children here, three children, beautiful children, two boys and two girls. I'm married. I've been married for 43 years. And in a nutshell, that's really the center of my life. I'm retired, a retired professor of English and Chicano literature.
Right. You say that someone like yourself, that is impressive. We're so glad to have you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice to be appreciated.
Well, you know what? That's a proper segue, Pedro, because you haven't always been appreciated. And that's why I wanted you to be able to be a source of encouragement for those of us who have found ourselves in the same position despite trying to give all we can. Can you talk a little bit about that history?
Well, yeah, I began teaching, wow, right after I got my master's degree in English from San Francisco State University. So that's 1983. And I got a job, but it was temporary. I felt appreciated at that job. It was working with young Latino, Chicano, Central American students in the San Francisco Mission District. Those students were so good, and my supervisors just gave me license to create and do what I wanted to do with them. So we did all kinds of fun things. I had to leave it because it was a temporary funded program. From there, I went to Fresno State and worked in another nonprofit. And that was a terrible experience. I became very, very known with the students, and there were those who disliked all that and let me know that you need to stick to your role as a part-time professor and a part-time one-to-one writing specialist. And I said, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm teaching. Pulled me aside and said, this handshake you give in a quad, what is that all about? I go, oh, that's a Chicano handshake. You want me to teach it to you? They were like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. I said, why shouldn't I be doing that? That's what I have. That's what we do. As an educator, you should want to learn about us, shouldn't you? But I began to become the center of attention for administrators, and they targeted me and pushed me out of that job. I applied system wide. And so, luckily, here, I finally ended up at Delta College. I had a woman who really supported me all the way through. She was a white woman, she was a Baptist. Her name was Judy. She helped me through all the process, even took me behind quarters to tell me what she was doing. And they squeezed me into a position. And I retired from that position. I was there for 31 years.
Whoa.
But it wasn't a cakewalk, man. Let me tell you. Because of who I am, I think they resisted hiring me because they thought, well, here's a Chicano. He combs his hair back like a cholo. That's my hairstyle, right? He dresses kind of different. So this guy's going to start a revolution on our campus. It wasn't really that. It was just having a voice for those who are excluded. And those who are excluded are us, administratively, faculty wise, and also defending students. This is all students because you would hear faculty really talking in negative terms about student writers and laughing at their essays and failing their essays. And they were doing things illegally for the state of California. And we called them on that, but they wouldn't change the system until recently. It was our legislature caught wind of what they were doing system wide, really. I spent a lot of time fighting that. As a result, they saw me as the enemy of the department and of the campus. And I wasn't. Since I retired, it's back on an even keel. They are giving our students opportunity to excel and to be in programs that'll help them excel. But through all that, it was tough. It was tough going through that. Yeah.
Listening to your story, there's a couple things I want to ask you about. It seems like the bullying that accompanied you to different places happened when you were trying to affect change. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And then it seemed like in some occasions you found a champion. You became the champion for many people, but then you found your own champion or a person who really wanted to go to battle for you.
I did. I found that the person who brought me into the campus was there to protect me, and she did. And then there was a person that I worked with. Her name was Georgia Sutton. She was a Filipina Mexican woman who was just a kind of spirit. She grew up here in Stockton. She was so magical. She taught me a lot about relating to the students I had to work with at the beginning of my employment at Delta College because I had to work in a program called Migrant Transition, not only migrant, all students from cross cultures, white, black, brown, everybody, Asian, not having a high school diploma to obtaining their GED in English or in Spanish, and to communicate with students who are going through trauma where they just couldn't take it anymore and drop out of school. You need to learn to listen. There was a guy named Frank, I remember, he was a football coach, assistant football coach. Frank Rubino, another Filipino man. And I went to him one time. I said, Frank, I don't know if I can do this job. He goes, why? I said, well, it's my first semester, and I don't think students are listening to me, you know? I'm trying to teach. And he goes, hey, don't say anything. Just stand there and smile. You're already a role model. He helped me as well. But Georgia was the one that really pushed me forward. But she died in 4 years that I had her, and it coincided with my tenure track at Delta College. You get tenure in 4 years, and Judy and Georgia helped me. And in that fourth year, she got pancreatic cancer. You believe it? But yeah, you know, people were there at every little stopping point where I thought things would end or not go so well. There was people who intervened for me, and sometimes it was divine intervention because after I was left alone, we had to hire another faculty member. They were trying to hire a person on campus that didn't know how to teach. And they were trying to push him into the position, and I became the chairman of the hiring committee. So they ended up hiring two people. One of them was pushed out of position by my supervisor, and the other one, who had come from Beijing, China, and had gotten her education here, was tough. She hung on, and my supervisor, immediate one, was angry with me for about 5 years because of that. So she spent a lot of time trying to bully me, but none of it worked. I deflected. Yeah, none of it worked. I was teaching the course. She had in one class 65 people. And to me, she didn't understand that I grew up in a big family. I had 65 first cousins. So to me, I walked into that class, I'm like, hey, here's the family, you know? And I treated them like that. We got along right away. This supervisor would come by my room, try to get me out of my comfort zone. But I didn't mind that either because I remember at my house, everybody came by. The more the merrier, right? So I see her and I said, hey, come on in, you know? And she would come in. I go, hey, everybody, this is my boss. Do you want to say something? You can say something you like. You know, if not, you can sit around and you can see how we learn here. After about 2 or 3 times doing that, she got tired of coming around. My students would say, hey, Mr. Ramirez, you don't like her, huh? They could read everything. I swear you couldn't hide anything from them. They knew, you know, I loved those students. They were a great training ground for me to finally transition over into the English department, which that was another big word. They did not want me in that department. That supervisor didn't want me into that in that department. We got a new president in, and this president happened to be a Chicano. I went to a meeting with this president, and he was a little late, the president, but he said he was on Chicano time, and I'm like, I haven't heard that since college. You know? He heard my case. He moved me to the English department.
Wow.
Yeah, he did. He did it on his own. And I remember I went to a union convention in Anaheim. A white union member came up to me and says, hey, it's Mexican time, huh? I go, yeah, for one person. You know, and he's like, what do you mean? I go, it's always your time. It's always been my time, but you guys never let me in. You know, you can be white, but not understand us because you don't have the DNA we have with over 500 years of oppression. I didn't tell him that, but those comments, he backed off right away. So it told me, well, you understand some things, but not a lot. I was a high rated English teacher, I would say 10 years. Our president left, and then I was attacked. Boom, man. They attacked the hell out of me, man. Oh my God. And I should have expected it, but I didn't, you know, 'cause I thought things were good. I had groups of people of my own going after me too, which really was terrible.
That story, that's the one that we want to initially tell because there's some patterns there that you overcame that are very familiar to targets of bullying. You know, the things that I see there that we're going to really highlight is like, you know, you went in with all good intentions and then those good intentions are not rewarded in certain environments. But then when you get champions, you're protected until they're gone.
And they'll protect you. Now, the other problems that come along, you know, you're getting along with a person and you're not. That's really messes with your brain. I forgive those people. I move on. Yeah.